Her sneaker sunk into the quicksand like mud, and she trudged toward the wrestling match as fast as she could. By now, Mona had managed to raise herself up enough so she was on her knees, wiping mud off her face with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. Spotting the crazy-eyed woman wielding a clam-digging rake, Mona grabbed hold of an overturned bucket and began wildly swinging it at the woman to keep her at bay. The woman, incensed, began taking stabs at her like she was in a sword duel in medieval England. When Hayley finally reached them, she hurled herself in between them, knowing that she was risking getting impaled by the rake or whacked in the head with the clam bucket. "I said stop!" Hayley screamed at the top of her lungs, so loud even Leroy ceased barking and watched the scene in dumbstruck silence. Hayley threw her arms out wide to keep the brawlers at a safe distance from one another, like a World Wrestling Federation referee calling out illegal maneuvers. Finally, both women seemed to give up. They dropped their weapons, but still stood facing off, glaring menacingly at one another. "It's a good thing Hayley got here when she did, or you wouldn't be able to stand right now," Mona snapped. The other woman rolled her eyes. "Don't flatter yourself, Barnes. It was over for you before it even got started." She wiped mud away from her face with her hands, and Hayley finally got a good look at her. It was Vera Leighton, the oldest daughter of Lonnie Leighton, owner of Leighton Fish and Seafood, a local business, and Mona's chief rival. The situation was finally starting to slowly come into focus. The two seafood companies had been competing for decades, first with Mona's parents and Lonnie. Now the war was mostly waged between the second generation to run the businesses, Mona and Vera. Although Mona's parents had long retired, Lonnie was still very much involved with his company, although Vera, along with his two younger daughters, Ruth and Olive, ran the day-to-day business. The two companies constantly clashed, vying for the best restaurant contracts and tourist business, like a modern-day Hatfields and McCoy's family feud. "Would one of you mind telling me what's going on here?" Hayley demanded. Her body is still in the middle to keep them physically apart. Vera pointed a gnarled finger at Mona. "She knows what she did." "Well, I don't, so why don't you tell me, Vera?" Hayley sighed. "She's always trying to encroach on my territory, and I won't stand for it anymore," Vera snarled. Mona guffawed. "You're crazier than your demented daddy if you think this spot is your territory. If you didn't drop out of high school to elope with that loser, Kenny Farley, you'd know this is public property." "You know I never married Kenny." That's because Vera's enraged father had stopped them before they even had the chance to reach the Trenton Bridge. But even though her marriage plans were curtailed, Vera never bothered returning to school to finish up and get her diploma. "Not marrying you is the only lucky day that poor kid ever had," Mona snorted. "I hear he's in the state pen for a botched convenience store robbery. You could always pick him, Vera." Vera eyed the rake lying by her feet. "Vera, don't even think about it," Hayley warned. Vera flicked her eyes to Hayley. "My family has been clamming this spot since the 1970s. It was an unspoken rule that Mona and her boys stay far away from here and do their clamming elsewhere. So imagine my surprise when I showed up here this morning to find Mona in her hip waders digging for my clams." "These are not your clams, Vera. Mother Nature isn't part of the Leighton seafood empire," Mona snapped with a sarcastic sneer. "I have every right to be here." "You just came here to get my ire up. Come on, admit it," Vera yelled accusingly, her gnarly finger pointing again. Hayley folded her arms. "Did you, Mona? Did you come to this spot this morning just to tick off Vera?" There was a long pause. Then, looking down at the discarded bucket and the closed-up clamshells scattered all around, Mona muttered, "I refuse to answer on the grounds that it will probably incriminate me." "See, she just likes stirring up trouble," Vera cried. "Mona, why did you feel the need to come here and upset Vera? That seems awfully petty," Hayley said. "Because she knew I was negotiating a contract with that new restaurant, the Greek one, on Cottage Street, and she came in at the last minute and stole it away from me."